I got an hour before my next call. My dog is sleeping, so I'm gonna try to squeeze in this video. So if you hear me talking quietly, it's because I don't want to wake up the boy sleeping in his cage in the other room, so bear with me. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I got my start, or like what my journey was from living in my parents' basement, making $35,000 as a teacher, public school teacher, to being self-employed and making enough that is comparable to what I would be making in any conventional job in marketing. So thought we could talk about that pivot, how I did that. So I've hesitated making this video because I don't feel like I'm done, like I'm finished yet, but my finish line might look different from someone else's finish line. Why deny anyone a good story? So I thought I could just hit record, see what happens. Here we go. So if you don't know me, my name is Lauren and I built my YouTube channel initially around the book publishing, book marketing space. What you need to know about publishing but probably don't. What you need to know about marketing yourself and your book but probably don't. In summary, it all boils down to recognizing that it is a business. How the heck did I get to the point of even realizing that? Well, we're gonna have to throw it all the way back to 2019. Well, no, technically 2017, but really it starts in 2019. So this is spanned over the course of maybe 5 or 6 years. I really have to give credit to 2017. That was the year that I decided to try something completely out of the ordinary and decided to work in Yellowstone National Park. And it wasn't so off the wall because that's what my dad did. My dad worked in Yellowstone, like, I don't know, between 3 to 5 times in the 80s. What a time to be alive. So that's really where I got the initial idea. I grew up hearing a lot of stories about all the things that he and his friends would do, including one guy who was nicknamed Fathead. I don't know how that story started, but that's kind of where I got the initial idea to be like, oh, I wonder what that would be like. I was in college, but I didn't have a summer job at home. I did on campus, but when school was out, I didn't have a job. Ended up getting a job in Yellowstone and kind of knocked everyone's socks off with that. The grandmothers were crying, my mom was crying, everyone was like, why would you do that? You're gonna get eaten by a bear. And my dad was like, go, you're gonna be fine, go. So that's what I did. That really opened up a lot for me. It opened up all of my eyes in all of my places, literally and physically. Like everything was just so awake because every single part of life was amplified by 10 times over there. The colors were brighter, the smells were crisper, you appreciated hard work, you appreciated the good weather, and being in such a heightened, vibrant, amplified area of the world, it cracked me open, is what it did. It cracked me open. Leonard Cohen has a song lyric, and it says there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. I got cracked wide open working in Yellowstone. That's where I felt like I started to believe more about myself, give myself more credit than maybe what I did in the past, believing that I could do more than what I was already planning for myself, which was to go to school, finish school, get a job, work, be an honorable, respectable person. Still am, just not in the conventional sense. I don't know, it just made me feel like there were more possibilities out there that I just wasn't considering yet. So I go home, holy cow, this life is so incredibly dull compared to working in one of the greatest national parks in the world, the very first ever national park in the entire world. You come back home and there's roads everywhere. No one has been there except for you. I felt like the subject in Allegory of the Cave. If you ever read that book, it's like I saw this incredible thing and I'm trying to bring it back and show everyone, but no one believes me. You have to see it and experience it for yourself. So I got into a bit of a depression. What I felt over there did not translate to what I felt over here. I was miserable. I was expected to go back to school and do all these things, work my regular job on campus at the library. Like it's just, the vision kind of died a little bit, but I still had that little bit of working in Yellowstone in my back pocket. So I went back again for the second summer, and by that point, it's about 2018, I left and I got the idea, I should really write a book about this. I don't know of anyone else that's done this kind of thing before apart from my dad, and I don't really think he would be the kind to write a book unless he is. I don't know, maybe there's a side of him that I don't know about. But I was like, you don't hear about many people doing this kind of thing. A lot of people don't even know that you can do that kind of seasonal work in national parks. And so I was like, I should really write a book about that. I journaled a ton throughout my life, including all the way through Yellowstone. And I thought, I've already got a book in the making here anyway. I've got all these journal entries. I've got all these thoughts. I've got all these memories. Like, I have to do something with it. I can't let this just die with my memories. If I get like dementia or Alzheimer's or something, it's all gonna die with me. So I'd rather just document it somehow, So it all started with me in an effort to conserve that vision, to conserve that feeling, and show this sort of like coming of age type of growth, I guess. It's very, very much coming into your own. I was about 22 at that point. At the age of 22, I was also finishing up school. So after Yellowstone round number 2, went back home, graduated, got my degree, got the job and everything. And the job that I got was working at a Title I public school as a classroom teacher. I taught 6th grade at the elementary level, not the middle school level. That would be about ages 11 and 12 or so. So it's the fun age. And I do like working with young kids, like younger tween kind of kids. They're very misunderstood. There's a lot of complex emotions going on. There's a lot happening, and they don't always know what to do with it, how to navigate it. Your peers matter more than your parents and their opinions and what they're doing and what they're wearing and how they're talking. Like, a lot of that stuff matters. I have a soft spot for kids that age. At the same time, though, really hard to deal with sometimes. So I got a job working as a 6th grade teacher. I had to fund a lot of my classroom. I got a lot of hand-me-down supplies and materials and things from Goodwill, from relatives. I come from a very long line of classroom teachers at the university and the elementary schools. About 3 months in is when it really started to hit. Holy cow, it was hard. I didn't feel like I was getting any kind of support. The curriculum was extremely minuscule. I had to literally make everything that I wanted to teach the next day. It was me, 2 other teachers in my little cohort, and we had to put our heads together and just think about what are we going to teach the next day, because we didn't know. The curriculum for 6th grade was just not supported. So teacherspaidteachers.com had a real good year when I was there. If you don't know what that is, that's basically where you can pay for lesson plans, slideshows, activities, all that stuff. It's like Pinterest for teachers, except you pay for the content that you want. You download it, you print it off, you give it to your kids, you teach it. Around that 3-month mark, I heard about another teacher that I was in orientation with who was at least twice my age, and she quit after 3 months. And in that moment I thought, boy, that's a dream. It really is, because at that same time I was pulling 12 to 14 hour days. I was waking up from my bedroom in my parents' basement, driving 15 minutes down the road, getting into the school at, 6:30, 7 o'clock most days, staying until that same time in the evenings, not getting paid for overtime, grading, catching up, prepping my classroom, just trying to orient myself and figure out what the heck I was doing. Like, there was just so much to it. I believe very, very strongly that teachers and stay-at-home parents would make excellent project managers. I don't know if anyone here is looking for a project manager. Check those people out if they're looking for jobs. And it was an extended school year, so we went all the way until late June, something like that. So it was around springtime that I had to think about, okay, am I going to renew my contract for teaching? Because it was only a 1-year contract. It was just that 1 year that I was hired for, and when you're teaching, you have to renew. So sometimes they're in 1 year, 2 year, 3, 5, I don't know, it varies, but you get hired in contractual increments. So I had to think, did I want to renew my contract or did I want to do something new? And what that something new was, I had no idea. I did not know. I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. So I thought, I'll just go to grad school. That'll buy me some time. In retrospect, I did it because I didn't know what to do, and grad school is the most socially acceptable way of buying yourself time. So that's what I did. I got accepted to a school that was recommended by a former student of my aunt who's heavily in academia. She was talking about this school in Chicago, so I got accepted into their master's program, packed up, moved myself to Chicago. Mind you, in the middle of the pandemic, peak. This was like July, August 2021 when I moved from Kansas City to Chicago for grad school. So I couldn't tell if this was the best decision or the worst decision I made. I knew that time would tell. In the moment though, I had no idea what I was doing. So I found an apartment, like a 2 or 3 floor walk-up apartment, no elevator, just a tiny little spiral staircase that I had to move all of my stuff into, no air conditioning. I didn't even have an air conditioning unit. I didn't know that I was supposed to get one, so I just sweated profusely for that first summer there. But it was just a little 350 square foot studio apartment. I didn't have a job. I was waiting for school to kick in. It was a pandemic. I couldn't get out of the place. I couldn't go to any local coffee shops to get out and work. I didn't know anyone. It was scratch single girl living in the city, just here for school. I didn't have anything. I had about $20,000 in savings because I was saving everything that I made from living at my parents' house. So when I moved to Chicago, I lived off of my nest egg for a year. Like, I made that stuff stretch. I thought about tutoring at that point, but I was so burned out at that point that I couldn't even think about it without triggering my gag reflex. Like, I felt sick whenever I thought about teaching. I was just so burnt out on it. So I just lived off of the money that I had in my savings account. 6 months was pretty dull, pretty boring, and it was still around this time that I was working on my book. All through teaching, all through school, all through my first job, this entire time, very, very quietly, I was working on the first draft of my book, which was The Finer Things Club. Had no idea what I was doing. No income, no friends, no connections, couldn't get out of the apartment because it was COVID. So I just had this tiny little desk. I mean, it was like a tiny little desk with a laptop that was like stacked on top of a bunch of books. And I would wake up at 5 a.m. sometimes to write before I had to do what I needed to do for school. I also, like I said, didn't have an air conditioning unit at this time, but there was a library right next to me. So just to get relief from the sweltering heat inside of my little 350 square foot apartment, I would bop across the street, go work over there just to buy me some time and to just get into some air conditioning. It was very, very dull for the first 6 months that I was there. And then the day after New Year's, when I had gone home for a holiday break with my family for Christmas, for the winter months, I got out of the shower and I decided I should probably date. I don't like dating. I've never liked dating. I hate, what's your favorite color? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Anyway, I had a shower thought and I was like, God, I should probably date. So what did I do? I made an account on eHarmony. Why eHarmony? I don't know. I always picture the old guy in the commercials whenever I think of eHarmony. It was the first one that I thought of. I did all the free apps. I did Bumble. I didn't like it, so I thought if I paid for something, maybe I'd get a better selection. No, except for one guy. Came across this dude the day after New Year's, and he stuck out like a sore freaking thumb. This guy has some serious direction. He is now today my husband. So I was like, I don't know, yeah, sure, he looks fine enough. I like his sense of confidence and direction. He was planning on going to med school at the time. He's not in med school. He changed careers just like I did. He was a ballroom dancer. He was Italian. He cooked. I'm like, what are you doing on here, man? Like, why are you on here? So anyway, we had a date, we got together, and then I felt like that's kind of where my life started a little bit. I hate to be cliche, but Nick did bring a lot of color into my life. So Nick, man, I don't know if you're watching this. I just like you a lot. And it was around the time that I met Nick that I learned that he was actually working at a startup that his friend had started. Now, when I say working at a startup, I mean like a volunteer basis. Like, this was not profitable at all, but it was him and like, I don't know, 2 or 3 maybe other friends who were doing this like software thing. It's pivoted into some other stuff. That company got sold off a handful of years later, so that's kind of cool. But he was a part of the early stage of this startup, living with his parents. Also, he didn't have a job either because he was also in school, because he thought he was on the pre-med track, so we both had a lot in common at that time. I joke with him that he can rest assured that I never dated him for his money. But he also did the conventional thing. He went to school. He went to Northwestern. He got his biomedical engineering degree, worked at all the corporate places, did the consulting, made the money. He hated it, absolutely hated it. So he pivoted and tried something new, working in this like cool little startup. I didn't know anything about startups. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship at this point. I was just a lost student, poor graduate student who was sweltering in her apartment heat trying to figure out the next phase of life. So we had a lot in common around this time. It comes to be the time when I'm ready to graduate from my graduate studies. It's actually on the top shelf right there in my degree. I got myself a Master of Education in Cultural and Educational Policy from Loyola University Chicago, and I can tell you with absolute confidence I have never used this degree. I had gotten an internship, a paid internship part-time at a nonprofit, helping them with their policy, developing curriculum and everything for grades K through 12. But after that, when it was time to look for like the big kid job after graduating from school, I had no idea what I was looking for. There were opportunities in nonprofits, there was government work that I could do, but none of it really excited me. Like, I thought I would be in the trenches, like fighting for teachers' rights and like making some real change, but like all of the opportunities I was seeing like did not match that vision, so there was a little bit of disillusionment there. But at the time that I was looking, this had to have been about December of 21 slash January 22, I want to say, something like that. A friend of Nick's, my then boyfriend, now husband's, was working at an agency, a marketing agency that happened to launch books, nonfiction books for business leaders. They also did web development and design, like they did business coaching, like they did a lot of different stuff. And so she was like, hey, we're actually looking for another project manager. Would you have any interest in joining that? I didn't know what book launching was at all. Mind you, I was still working on my book, trying to get that sucker edited. I had just finished my first draft. I was trying to clean up all the other drafts, doing this completely on my own through courses, buying books, getting templates, attending webinars, trying to like do all these things, just trying to make the vision happen. So by this point, it had been like 2 or 3 years in the process. And a friend of Nick's was like, hey, do you want this opportunity to work around books? I said absolutely yes. I get interviewed, it works out. I love my job. I love my job. And basically what my responsibility was, what my main job was to manage all of the moving pieces that went into a big, beautiful book launch for these people. And the reason for doing that was because if you marketed the book, you sold a lot of the book, that book would lead to their brand or to their business, and they could get more clientele that way, or they could grow their community, or they could increase their prices, or they could attract more speaking gigs or something like that. It was all about thought leadership, using a book as a marketing tool for that thought leadership. But anyway, it was my responsibility to help manage a lot of those moving pieces, make sure that everything was on track, everything was on time, that all the boxes were being checked off. I was a project manager for books. Loved it, loved it, loved it, because I got to balance the left side of my brain with the right side of my brain. It was super, super fun and had a really, really good time doing that. I was learning a lot of new stuff. There was everything that I was learning on my own just through pure research, books, webinars, blogs, so many blogs, oh my god. At the same time, I was learning what it meant to develop an experiential website. I was learning about how much it cost to get on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. Like there were all these little things that I was learning that I had no idea about that had to do with like the money side of books, the money side of creativity. And that's when I started creating more content about the stuff that I was learning, because I was like, holy cow, if this is like such a shock to me, I can only imagine the information, like it could blow the tops off of so many people's brains. So everything that I was learning, I was creating content around and sharing. And that eventually led into making Bookstagram-ish kind of content. And that's where I got a little bit of a taste of virality. I made a video on this earlier about what people don't know about going viral. Everyone wants to go viral, but what happens when you go viral? I had a couple reels go viral ranging from about, I don't know, 200 some thousand views all the way up to 1.1 million views. Viral, but the small end of viral. And I was gaining a lot of traction that way. I was kind of building a bit of a following. I got about, I don't know, 1,700 new followers from that one video of mine that got 1 million views. Very, very passively started uploading a lot of that stuff to YouTube. Extremely passively. When I say passively, I mean I was putting all my focus into Instagram, downloading those shorts onto my phone, uploading them to YouTube, and giving the title whatever the caption was or whatever the first thing I said was. No description, no hashtags. I was not counting metrics. If it cut off, it cut off. Very, very passive. I was doing that for a good handful of months during like lunch breaks and stuff. If I needed a break from the work, because it was all remote. Everything that I was doing was completely remote. So if I needed a break from the day, I would make a reel and then I would upload it to YouTube. After about a good handful of months of doing this, I don't know, anywhere between maybe 3 to 6 months, I poked back at my YouTube page and I saw, oh, wow, I've got like 300 subscribers. I thought I only had like 50 or something like that. So that told me that, oh, there might be a bit of a demand for this kind of thing on YouTube. I had no idea. So I kind of started playing around with YouTube a little bit at that time, creating content around the stuff that I was learning both on my own and on the job. A lot of this stuff is out there. It's just a little less prominent because maybe people don't have the vocabulary for it. Maybe because some of it might be a little bit taboo, but a lot of the stuff that I was learning was coming from articles, coming from blogs, coming from stuff that I was experiencing and learning on the job, like I said. And that stuff started to do pretty well. And it was around this time, about a year, coming up on about a year or so of working at this job, big culture shift in the company that I just didn't vibe with. So I dipped out of that, ended up not really being a fit, not going into it here. But I ended up leaving that job after about a year and some change, like 15 months or something like that. And I was in this really tricky spot because all of my credentials were in education, like my bachelor's, my master's, my most recent experience, my internship, it was all rooted in education. But my most recent experience working at this marketing company, launching books, being a part of these brands and helping people to build out their visions, like the thing that I really, really loved, I only had 1 year of experience in that. So it was kind of like this weird in between. And learning that I like the technical and business side of books, I wanted to break into publishing. Little did I know that that is an extremely competitive niche to get into. It is very, very competitive, yet very, very prestigious, but extremely underpaid, and also super competitive. And it's also in New York City, which also happens to be one of the most expensive cities in the world. So the cards were not in my favor, yet I persisted, God bless. So I spend months just trying to find anything. And I thought, why couldn't I make it in educational publishing? That makes so much sense. All of my credentials are in education. My most recent experience is in books. Why the heck wouldn't that work? So I was applying to all these educational jobs, but that's very, very, very niche. And everyone in the publishing community kind of knows one another. It's sort of like moving into a small town where everyone knows about each other. So relationships is really, really huge. And if you're like the new kid coming in on the block, they're going to be like, do you know them? I don't know them. Should we trust them? I don't think we should trust them. So unless you have crazy credentials, you went to school for that kind of thing, or you happen to know someone, or you're born into that kind of industry, I don't know. It's so competitive. I think I made a video on that a while ago if you want to watch that. At the same time too, my husband Nick pivoted away from the medical space. He decided he didn't want to go to medical school. My husband Nick, around the same time, going on a very, very similar journey as me in parallel, he had gotten a job at a trademarking company, also remote, so we were both working remotely in the same place, as a COO. Chief Operations Officer, something like that. He really, really, really liked it, but he was there for about I want to say maybe 2 years or so, so slightly longer than I was at my other job launching books, and he actually worked himself out of the job. And what I mean by that is that he laid out all the right systems and operations and everything. Like, he did his work so well that he worked himself out of the job, which he was, which is good. It sounds bad, but in this sense it was good. So at the same time I was looking for a job, he was also looking for a job, so we didn't have any income. It was a very, very frustrating, very, very hard time. So I couldn't find a job. So what I did to tie us over, is I ended up getting a part-time job at the library down the road, local library. I'll occasionally pop over there still. Everyone's super nice over there. I love going to that place. But I worked there for about a year, making about, $21,000 a year or so annually. So it was at this time that we were probably making under 100K or so per year, which might sound really great. To others, it might sound really not so great. It was like a break even every month. Some months were better, some months were worse, but for like 12 months, it felt like for 10 or 12 months, it was just break even every single month. So when I started to work at the library, I started thinking, I can't keep doing this. Like, I gotta figure something out. And so, I was sharing all these ideas that I had with a colleague, and she was like, Lauren, you need to start your own thing. Don't give that to anyone. Like, save that for you and do something with that. Like try something out on your own. Make money for yourself off of that stuff. So I was like, okay. So I went over to Nick and I was like, Nick, man, what do you think about this? What if I went into business with myself and helped people to find their ideal publishing path, like for books and stuff, because there's a lot of options out there. That's something that I struggled to do. And it was around this time that I had also published my book. I got my publishing deal because I happen to know the co-founder of a very small traditional publisher. Got that published within 6 months, I would say. So around this time, my book was very freshly launched, so I had just come out of the whole publishing process, experiencing it for myself. So I was like, I have this idea where I can help people get clear on what publishing path is right for them. And he goes, yeah, I think that's worth trying out. Let's go for it. He, being someone who's got a lot of experience with startups and entrepreneurship and stuff, he was more familiar with it than I was. So I trusted him to help me out, and he continues to help me out. I do consider him both my husband and my business partner. It's a really, really cool setup. And after about a year or so of playing around with stuff, I was working at the library, and then when I wasn't working at the library, or sometimes if I was working on this business thing on the side, just trying to get a client. That was like my biggest goal for months, just trying to get a client. And I ended up getting my first client after a couple of months of starting this thing for $100 a month. So with the Publishing Power Pack, which is the thing where I was going to help people get clear on what their publishing path was, I didn't get any clients from that. I learned that that was a very, very, very niche service to have, a little bit too niche, I would probably argue, because people can do the research online. They might not necessarily know that that's a problem. Why would they want to fork over, $1,000, $1,500 for someone to help them with something like that? It was just a little too particular. So a lot of this was just trial and error, just seeing what people responded to, what people didn't respond to, what got traction, what didn't get traction. I got my first client for $100 a month offering book coaching services. I had never done book coaching in my life. I was completely just feeling my way through this. I was purely going off of what I had learned on my own, writing my own book. So I got my first client. She was also a teacher, but I really did not like it. I like the business of books. I don't like the craft of writing. I liked it when it was necessary. I liked it when I had to do it to publish my book. But for other people, I don't really like that stuff. I like talking about, how do you get it published? How do you get it to market? How do you promote it? How do you build a brand around that? How are you going to use that to increase your revenue? That stuff's really, really fun for me. But a lot of the people that I was working with at this time, offering these coaching services, they just wanted to write the book. It was baby steps for them. I was kind of wanting to go a little bit further. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. So then after that, I decided to pivot back to what I knew, which was book marketing. And I got a couple clients that way. My price point started going from $100 a month to $250 a month to $500 a month. And then I eventually got my first big client, who is still with me to this day, charging $750 a month for book marketing. That's what he initially hired me for. Since then, I'm proud to say, we have co-launched a paid community on the school platform for a place for him to put all of his knowledge when it comes to financial investing for retirees. That's what his book is about. That's what his brand is about. He has a very, very strong reputation, 40 years in business as a business owner himself. There's fish, there's whales, and then there's sharks. I had been working with a lot of fish at that time, lower paying, more frequent clients. I wanted to start working with higher paying, less quantity clients, if that makes any sense. So this client that I got for $750 a month for book marketing, I thought, I have really got to do this right. If I want this guy to stick around, I've really, really, really got to make sure that I am doing my homework. I'm walking the talk. I'm executing. I'm just showing up perfectly. This has to be perfect. He has to feel good about the work that we're doing together. And in fact, I have a call with him in 10 minutes, so I hope I can wrap this up in time. But thankfully, he ended up liking me enough that he was willing to accept the price increase that I offered after 1 month of setting goals and meeting every single one of them. So that's kind of how I proposed it. I said, hey, you pay me this much a month. These are the goals that I'm going to set in place for us based on what you're wanting, what your challenges are, what you want to see more of or less of. These are 3 to 5 goals. If I hit every single one of these in the next month, I'm going to raise my rate by 20%. So that would put me from $750 a month to $1,000 a month. And for me, at that time, that was big bucks. That was big dollars for a client. Because in the past, all of these people were $150, $250 clients per month. So I operate on a monthly retainer basis. He taught me that clients can teach you stuff too. I mean, they hire you because you're the expert, but when you're really in sync with one another, it is so cool having that kind of symbiotic relationship where you give them ideas, they give you ideas, and you both teach yourself a lot of cool stuff in the process and build something really amazing together. So he's the first. I consider him really my first client, and he's awesome. As my reputation started to grow a little bit more, and I started to share a little bit more about what I did with people, with colleagues, I started networking more around this time. Networking is huge. I can't even begin to tell you. I can't say I love networking, but boy, a lot of referrals and a lot of business in those early days, and even now, still come from those referrals that I networked with, back those handful of years ago. In fact, networking is so important that I've been able to share clients with people and be able to split revenue that way. So it's not all on me and it's not all on them. If clients feel comfortable enough with you, they might even be able to do a bit of a revenue share or a profit share or something like that. I've done that with clients before. But you really, a lot of it comes down to trusting yourself. I mean, a lot of it comes down to just trusting your intuition and risking looking like a doofus and coming across as being misunderstood until you get it right and you start getting those results. Then when you start getting those results, people are saying this, your reputation is this, the clients that you're attracting are this type, their budget is like this. I mean, all those things kind of add up together enough that you can begin to see this thing take shape and see the kind of results that you're getting. And when other people besides yourself start to see that, they start to take you more seriously. It is just like a book. I told everyone for years that I was writing a book, that I was gonna get it published. You know, a lot of it was like that pat on the head, like, oh, that's nice, dear. And then when I did it, everyone was like, oh my God, you published a book. And it's like, where have you been? Yes, I said I was going to do it and I did it. It's the same thing translated in business now. All of those things that I learned beforehand all have directly contributed to the work that I do now. Everything is something to learn and to apply either then or later. If you don't know what the point of something is now, it's probably going to kick in later. It's just so cool. When all of this stuff starts to unfold, you feel so incredibly lost. You feel so lost in the moment. And then as it starts to unfold, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool how like all these pieces start to come around like full circle. Like I can see how that would come in here and all this stuff. So while I don't teach conventionally, I still educate people on the things that they do or don't know about books, about marketing, about business, and about how all of those things go together, about personal brand, about building an online presence. I mean, like all of that stuff. And the hardest part of this entire thing, truly, this entire thing has been the consistency. Consistency has got to be one of the most important muscles to flex. It is so hard when you're not seeing any results, when you're not getting any clients, when nothing is happening, like there's no traction. Just sticking with it, because what you put out now might have a bit of a delayed reaction. I've learned that my stuff tends to have more of a slow burn. If I put something out now, I don't start to see the views until a week to 10 days later. I'm still waiting for when my big moment's gonna come, but until then, I'm gonna keep making content and lifting up other people around me as I lift myself up, because I think that one person can help the collective and the collective can help that one person. So I don't know. This was not scripted, so if it was a little jumbled, I apologize, but I literally just had this idea today and I was like, I have to like shower and hit record. I hope this has been helpful and at least semi-empowering. I really don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I've still got plenty more goals that I want to hit. I don't feel very impressive at all. I'm still trying to get to the point where I impress myself. I figure if I can give myself a reaction, then I'm doing pretty good. So, just taking it a day at a time. You try on a lot of shoes in the beginning. You are trying on a lot of pairs of shoes until you know what fits. And you're going to increase your chance of finding what fits the more stuff you try out and the more consistently you try stuff out. So consider subscribing to my newsletter if you want. I also have a paid community that I'm playing around with, so check that out if you want. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, take care. See you later.